Hello, 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 hello. I popped a question on YouTube. Why do you not just use digital cameras all the time? The top response is they distract me from what's important. Next, digital cameras are weak sauce. Next, image vibes are just fugly and too much micro contrast and detail. Nobody voted for software pain points. I hear people complain about them a lot, but no votes registered here. Thank you for the reply, if you responded. All right, a couple quick announcements. I am now officially a Royal We photographer. Royal We Film Lab says that they're going to add 3 Royal We photographers a year, and that I'm part of the inaugural group. And I'm excited about it. There's a part of me that was conflicted because I like being neutral, not being biased, and sometimes when I'm watching other YouTubers or reading things online, I don't like it when they're associated with a brand or a brand ambassador, or like they're a Fuji X photographer. Right? At one point, I actually wanted to be a Fuji X photographer, but somewhere in there, I was like, man, it seems like they're sort of stuck just kind of praising every product, and it's like, are we going to talk about how Fuji is slipping a little bit and how their products aren't as good and as cutting edge and as innovative as they used to be? No, we're not, because there's like a little bit of brand bias underneath this. And so when I started making videos on YouTube, I wanted to be free. But Royal We is a film lab, and I really want to support film labs, and I work very closely with them already. I'm sort of a consultant, and it's just undeniable that I'm sort of like a photographer in the field who collaborates with them. So now it's going to be like an official label, and we'll see where that goes. Related to this is I'm also going to try, I'm slowly working on a show, and I'm going to start making a lot more prints. Now, a lot of them are going to be inkjet prints, and it's been a while. It's been like almost 5 to 7 years since I printed a lot. And when I did that, Red River paper was my favorite. And I found out that thanks to Useless, that they do have like a brand ambassador program, and I'm going to apply. So I mentioned this one because I sort of want you to subscribe to my channel if you don't already, so that I can get my subscription over 400 before I fill out this application. All right. Enough about me. The Leica Discord group, right? Leica Discord. If you're not on there already, I recommend it. The gallery is getting really good. I haven't even seen this picture. Gavin, right? Somebody said bangers tonight. Yeah, man, the gallery has been banging. Check out this shot. Look at that. It's so good. That's from Chris James. You got this one from Gerson. This one from, is it Cap 9? Ooh, I hope I didn't get that wrong. This one from Yofred. So good. And this one from Pat. I've been doing a series of guest photographers that send me a roll, and my next roll is from Pat. And I hope I get more pictures like this. All right. The last topic I have, I'm going to be a little messy with it. It's sort of just kind of like, I don't know, into the brain. Right. One thing that you got to understand if you're a film photographer coming from digital is that when you talk about shooting a film at box or like, let's say 400 or 800 or 1600, right, it's not the same as just adjusting your ISO dial. All right, the biggest difference is it's more of just a contrast adjustment, right? You're pulling your midtones and your highlights way up, but your shadows aren't really budging. They're sort of stuck in the mud. And this graph shows that nicely. Here, HC110, right, is developer used at 1/60th dilution. And here's how the different tones separate out. Right, your shadows are down here, maybe of a density of 0.3 or 0.4, and your highlights go up to a density of like 1.5 on your negative. But then if you make it a higher concentration, right, you could go back and develop it again, but with a higher concentrate of HC110. Right, your shadows still sort of stay down here at the same density level. You unpack them a little bit, but you really pull out your midtones and your highlights, and they get a lot more separation. And now all of a sudden, your highlight goes from like a 1.5 up to like a 2.1, where maybe some of your shadows went from like a 0.3 to like a 0.34. Right, so when you really talk about like what speed gains are we getting by pushing or developing longer, right, you're lucky to get like another half a stop or a stop of speed. Right, really, you're just stretching out things that are above your deep shadows. And it's non-linear in the way where your highlights are getting the biggest tug. I mean, it depends a little bit on your development strategy, but right, if you go to like Kodak, Xtol, Tech Sheet, right, they basically equate film speed. Here's like T-Max P3200, right? So we got speed, you can shoot it at 100, 200, 400, 800, 1600, 3200, all the way up to whatever. But then they're basically equating that to a contrast index. It's like, I know this is speed we're talking about, but it's really contrast. All right, another really good place this it's kind of easy to see it, is in the Foma tech sheets. Right, so here this is time on the x-axis, and here is film speed. The longer we develop, right, initially you get more speed, you get more speed, you get more speed. All right, this is a 100 speed film. But now all of a sudden you plateau, and you really can't get past a speed of 125. Now, if you go up to 30 degrees instead of 20 degrees, you plateau around 160. But again, you're talking about a 100 speed film that with really aggressive development is only getting you like another half a stop. But the contrast, on the other hand, right, the contrast keeps going up. It also plateaus. Plateaus later, maybe. Right, so the contrast can go from something like a 0.5 or 0.6, which is typical of like box, to something much contrastier. So I like the Foma sheets because they treat contrast and speed independently, and they show you how they're related to temperature. And then down here we even get information about fog levels. So the Foma graph is a really cool way to show you sort of your development options and what you might get from them and the relationship of the variables. And you can't really apply kind of general rules of thumb to everything, right? So much in developing is developer and film combination specific. So even this, like, hey, if you pump up the temperature, you can access higher speeds. Well, that's not true for any of the other developers on here. They all top out the same from 20C to 30C. And if you look at other films, even Xtol doesn't, right? You can actually get more speed out of Foma 200 at a lower temperature. So again, this is where it's crazy how hard it is to just apply general rules of thumb. Right? You got to talk about film and developer combinations. So that's where something like this massive PDF from Kodak, where they've gone through and tested so much, is really handy, because it takes a lot of the, trying to figure out, well, if my temperature is this, and if I want to go for this contrast, and right, they tested, this is thousands of data points. So that's one great thing about Kodak and about Xtol, is the amount of data behind it and accessible for you. Now, the 1998 Xtol PDF is when they did most of their work. They also included 1:2 and 1:3 dilutions, which they later took out, probably because users were having problems with it. Instead of sort of explaining every kind of safety precaution you would need to be able to use such dilutions, they just got rid of them. All right, but they also put in rotary. Right, this was a first. Right, but now it's a little long in the tooth. Half these films are not available anymore. In 2008, they came through and did an update, although really all they did was get rid of the higher dilutions and add a time for Tri-X 400TX, because they had basically changed it so much that they had to put in new times in here. And that was it, right? It was mostly just, 400TX, get rid of all the high dilutions. And then 10 years later, they did another update, but all they did was update how the Kodak brand name is represented in the document. So not really an update. So it makes me nervous that in 2028, right, after another decade has passed, we're not really going to get an update to this. Right? They're not going to hire a bunch more interns to go through and test, well, what about Kentmere? And what about Ferrania P33? And what about, right? They're just going to let this thing ride its way out, I would guess. But my wish is that they would take sort of this Foma approach, maybe even add in some more variables like grain and acutance, make some awesome graphs, update it, put in a bunch of new films, and publish it out in 2028. What is this? Oh, this was a fun little experiment I found a long time ago where, right, some researchers were basically just like, how much speed can we get out of some films? And they used 70 degrees, which I thought was interesting, right? They didn't go to 80 degrees or 90 degrees. They found that 70 degrees, and they used Xtol, right? They used super high energy, and, right, Tri-X, the 1959 Tri-X, they got up to a speed of 1920. And then 1 year later, when they did Kodak did a new recipe on Tri-X, they only got it up to 1030, which is more than a full stop. 400TX, I would bet, is going to be even lower than that. And again, how are they measuring this speed? There's so many different methods. I don't know. I don't know. But it's sort of interesting. I was trying to figure out if you're really just trying to go for max speed, right? Would you just go hot? And they talk a little bit about their justification here. But it's interesting is they're like basically max speed is around a gamma of one, a contrast index of 1. And it's like, yeah, it's going to get grainy, and right, you're going to lose some, your fog levels are going to get up, and your resolution's going to go down, but you got that speed. So yeah, kind of a neat article to read. Lastly, I'm going to show just like I've been working on just a couple of tools for me where I can come in and say, hey, give me HP5 at 80 degrees in a 1-to-1 small tank. And I want to go with a contrast index of 0.65, and that's going to be 6.5 minutes. So I made myself just kind of a handy little tool for developing. I pulled in all the data from the PDFs, and then I'm also starting to do some analysis to kind of find patterns to apply to other films, because like I might want to shoot P33 and I don't have all of the data from Kodak, so but I do want to kind of make some educated guesses here. So, and then lastly, like, you know, massive depth chart exists, and look at all the films that have Xtol information, for example. But unfortunately, like out of the 901 rows in that table, 836 are at 20 degrees Celsius. So if you don't want to work at 20 degrees Celsius, you got to sort of figure out that. So like recently it's like, well, what's the 20 degrees Celsius time for Kentmere 400? And then I found, well, that's basically the same as HP5. And right, you connect one other data point and you feel confident that, yeah, you don't really have massive depth charts, not giving me much in terms of other temperatures or other dilutions for Kentmere, but it's basically behaving like HP5. So I can just use the HP5 information out of the Xtol PDFs. Okay, I think that's going to be it for now. Oh, do I want to show? I'll show a couple photos. I got so many photos from the last couple months I haven't shown. I was recently in Maine, and I really like, this is FP4. I was shooting a little bit under box, so I was like shooting around 200. And then I just overdeveloped it a little bit in Xtol. All right, nothing crazy, but just showing off the strengths of FP4. And this Maine coast had a bunch of cool rock. And hey, look at me, my shadow appeared. But just to show a couple here. Right, I really like this little rock here. Kind of the way this, it had a highlight hiding in the shadow here. And then I liked all the direction of this on this rock, and then this little rock and these shadows. I want them to be a little bit open. This brave man, not only did he jump into the water, but he swam all the way across, which was a long way. Yeah, again, just all this little rock, right? This is my 28 Elmaret spherical on my CLE. Just super sharp. Beautiful tones. This one I sort of like these little rocks back here. Kind of the way they get these little highlights. And sort of like lots of horizontal lines and the verticals and the shadows. Another one of my shadow here, and here's the water coming in. I sort of like, yeah, these kind of darker tones, the silver here. This one got the most praise on the Leica Discord. This is a P33. It's got a little more grain here, a little more classic cubic grain, and then it's also, it's a thick film, and my CLE freaking, I think somewhere in there, you can see these scratches. So the film has quite a few of these horizontal scratches in it. So I hadn't had that with my Leicas, but I'm worried that the CLE pressure plate combined with that thick P33 put some scratches on here. But the photo, right, I love how she's got the magazine on her face. And, you know, her friends over here reading on their phones. This was a shot from the waist, zone focused. And then, yeah, just a couple more here. I only had like 30 minutes on the coast. I like this one though, all this like whatever seaweed coming up. It's nice. Yeah, some P33. I was trying, I was sort of motivated here to figure out what I liked, P33 or FP4. And P33, I sort of like this more. Like I like that the cubic grain shows up a little more. Right, FP4 can almost be too fine grain. But the extra thickness of P33 is something to worry about if you don't have the right setup. Hate to get scratches. But they're both really, really beautiful. All right. Take care.